always nice to have the extra accompaniment, not only from our pre-bar mitzvah students, but from the entire congregation. It is nice to know that I'm not singing alone, and you're all doing a great job tonight. Well, we also have to talk about a difficult topic. It's one that has consumed many of our Friday night discussions for the last few weeks. Lying. Yes, once again we are here in Bereshit, and we are again wrestling with lies. Now, we started off talking about the lie of Abraham, of whether or not Sarah was really his sister, and we talked about the dangerous situation he was in up against the Egyptians and Pharaoh, and we kind of gave him a free pass on that. And we talked a little bit about Isaac's copycat of that lie, also in a state of potential danger, certainly practicing what he had seen his father do, and there was also some wiggle room to allow that. Now we get to the most famous lie of all in the book of Bereshit, Jacob deceiving his father Isaac. This is where his mother helps him when his father says, "Esau, my son, go out, hunt for me what I love, bring it back, and then I will give you a blessing with the fullness of my spirit," thus letting us know that our full spirit comes from a full belly. Something to think of for next Thanksgiving Day. And when Esau leaves, Rivka, his mother, says, "Now is my chance to get Jacob in there instead. And I will dress him in Esau's clothes, and I will have him wear the hair of the goat, because Esau is so hairy, and then I'll prepare food the way Isaac likes, and Jacob can just, well, lie and say, 'Yes, I'm Esau, I'm here for your blessing,' and everything will be fine." Which is exactly what happens, until everything is exposed, at which point Esau vows bloody murder, Isaac is reduced to tears, and Jacob goes off into exile for 20-some years. Not exactly a happy ending to the story, but let's back up a little bit. Can we say that the lying was justified? We found reasons to justify it in the past in our discussions. What about this time? No. Because why is this lying different than other lying?
Because he's trying to take the blessing of his brother.
He's trying to take the blessing of his brother, but I mean, doesn't Rivka have good justification? Remember when she was pregnant with Jacob and Esau, the twins inside of her, and they were already wrestling inside of her womb, she had a prophetic vision, and the vision said that Jacob would be the superior of the two. So isn't she just fulfilling the prophecy?
How does the blessing even take place though? Because there's no kavanah. The kavanah is for Esau, and it's being done onto Jacob. So it seems like there's no kavanah there for Jacob.
Oh, right. So the kavanah, the intentionality is rather important, as we have talked other times, not recently. The intentionality behind our actions makes a lot of difference. If I say a blessing over a piece of fruit, and I say the blessing for an apple, when in fact I'm holding a banana, I need to redo the blessing because I was not thinking properly about what it is I was about to experience. You would think that doing the blessing for the wrong son might also not work, because Isaac thought he was blessing Esau, so if he blessed Jacob, then surely the blessing didn't stick. It was the wrong target. Except in the particular wording of the blessing of Isaac, it is "my son." It is a little more generic. And there are some times where the moment commands the effect, and if you can hit yourself in the line of fire, boom, it'll stick. At least that seems to be the intent behind this. But whether or not it worked or not, was the lie justified?
No, because it brought pain and fragmentation in the family.
No, because it brought pain and fragmentation in the family. Well, other lies brought pain and fragmentation to Avimelech and to Pharaoh. We don't care about them, we only care about our families?
No. But there was
the disruption between the brother relationship.
Because the brother relationship was so good before this.
Oh, we don't know.
Well, we know we have some pretty heavy clues. We already know they are very different people, not necessarily meaning worlds apart, But we also know the story of the buying of the birthright, different than the blessing, where Esau sells his birthright as his brother kind of sort of takes advantage of his impetuousness. It's not exactly a sign of a healthy brotherly relationship. Dickering over who's going to inherit when mom and dad die, and sell it to me or buy it from me for this porridge. I can't say that a good, healthy relationship between two brothers would let that happen as well. But if there hadn't been strife, if Esau had been okay with it, would it have been okay then? Are lies only bad because there are bad consequences?
But Rabbi, wasn't the problem that there was no overriding thing to justify the lie? For example, when Abraham lied about Sarah, it was to save his life, and preservation of life is almost always an overriding mitzvah.
Pikuach hanefesh tocheat hakol. If you are trying to save a life, you supersedes everything else. The only thing you can't do is murder someone else to save a life, because that would be killing to save someone. It doesn't work. But you're right. For most of the other instances we've been talking about life or death situations. But here, if Rivka did nothing, if the blessing went to Esau, would anybody die? Probably not. But she was concerned. She was panicked that Esau, whom she saw as being less than morally exemplary, that he was a person that our tradition reads between the lines, that was violent, that was rapacious. He was not the person that she believed the covenant would pass through. And if he were to receive that blessing, if he were to become the representative of the covenant, well, then everything that Abraham and Sarah tried to build would die here on the third generation. And she felt that was worth lying to save. To try and understand whether or not she was justified or not, well, we have to actually do a lot of legwork, because the Torah doesn't usually give us the omniscient narrator moralization. Right? This is not the after-school special where they sum up the story at the end of the episode and tell you, and that's, boys and girls, is why we never lie. Or that, boys and girls, is why it's okay to lie in this situation. We don't get that type of summary. Instead, we have to look at the knock-on effects. And the knock-on effects in this particular case are fairly clear. It's bad. Jacob goes off. Okay, we sort of understood why he might need to leave, although leaving the land of Israel is always a sign of things going bad in any of the stories of Abraham onwards. But more importantly, when he winds up in Laban's house, soon to become his father-in-law, what is the very, very first thing that happens to him? He gets lied to. He gets taken advantage of. He is tricked. He has someone else passed off as the person he thinks he's marrying, rather than the actual person he wants to marry. That's how he ends up marrying Leah first, because someone else dresses a person up in the clothes of the person they thought they were going to mate, and makes them go through the ceremony, and then he suddenly realizes that he has been trapped. The same thing happens to him that he did to his father. Midah keneged midah is the rabbinic phrase for this, measure against measure, often known colloquially in modern English as karmic payback. It works out to be very poetic justice. And as such, we have to read it as being justice, meaning that he deserved to be punished for what he had done, to be shown the error of his ways. And indeed, by the time he returns, decades later, he is a changed man. He is no longer lying. He is no longer dissembling in front of his brother, and he's no longer running from his brother. He is willing to stand and be who he is. And he has tried, with marginal success, to bring that into his family as well. But he is no longer the young man who was willing to dress up as his brother and act in that way. If we say that he was justified at the beginning, then we remove all of that character growth. We remove the entire arc of his of growing closer to God and recognizing that there were more important things than what was being offered at that moment. Indeed, he seems to recognize that this is not right. Still not quite perfect yet. There's still a bit more wrestling left to do, but that'll be for a few weeks from now. But the Talmud warns us very carefully, very clearly. We can't play favorites. We can't pick and choose whom we think is going to fulfill the destiny, the prophecy, who will be the golden child, who has the right to subvert justice because it's for a higher cause. The Talmud gives us the scenario of a person near the end of their life trying to decide how they wish to divide their inheritance among their children. And they might find that one child is righteous and scholarly and a good person, and the other not so much. Someone who is perhaps more often found in the gambling dens than in the sanctuary. But does that mean that we give all of our possessions to the good child and we cut the other out? No. The Torah tells us already that we give according to the standard practice of division among our children, even if we think some of them are more worthy than others. Why? Because we are terrible at long-term estimates of who will truly be worthy. Sure, this moment, one may seem righteous and the other may seem wicked, but in a year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, who is to say that they have not changed their direction? Who's to not say that the wicked one will reverse his course and become more like Jacob at the end of days, and that the righteous one, perhaps self-satisfied and smug, will begin sliding away from his goodness? And more so, who's to say what their children will bring, and the children after them? Instead, we do as we should. We are fair to all. We rest on that principle of justice, and we trust that in time it will sort itself out. In case you had any misapprehensions from our earlier discussions, lying is, as a rule, something that should be avoided. Deception is, as a rule, something that should be avoided. That we see that it brings pain, problems, suffering to the family as well as to the individual who thinks they're getting away with it. Occasionally, in life and death situations, it can be justified and indeed the correct course of action. But by and large, we act fairly and justly in all of our deeds, and we will find that overall, things will work better. Shabbat Shalom.